I mean, your leader gave a very brilliant speech, possibly one of his best yesterday, and I think really sort of exhibited the dichotomy between goings-on in Downing Street and the way people were behaving. But it doesn't seem to have done the trick. I mean, the Tory MPs are sticking by him. Boris lives to fight another day. What is going to topple him from power?
Well, I mean, that's what they want us to think. But actually, I think there's deep unease even amongst the Tory ranks in Parliament. Privately, a lot of Tory MPs are saying, well, I'm not going to break ranks because I don't want to be picked off. But they're very, very uncomfortable. And if you saw the faces yesterday in the House of Commons while he was speaking, especially when he made some comments about the Labour leader, then you could see for yourself, actually, that they're not happy. They're not happy at all. And you're right, Starmer's speech was excellent because he was angry, he was fired up, and he's angry on behalf not just of the Labour Party, but of the millions of people who abided by the rules when Downing Street flouted them.
But the problem, I suppose, that the Labour Party has now is that Boris Johnson, as Prime Minister, can knuckle down and stop behaving like a statesman. He's over in Ukraine today. He's setting forth a Brexit bill to cut red tape, which should appeal to some of the core voters. Yet we're not really sure what it is the Labour Party stands for at the moment. The counter-offer isn't there. They seem to be able to attack the Prime Minister when he's really got his back against the ropes, but it's not always clear what it is that they're proposing.
Well, you know, you say that, Alex, but actually we stand firmly with the taxpayer. At this very moment, there's a debate going on about the £4.3 billion in fraudulent claims during lockdown that's been written off by the Treasury. This is absolutely shocking and appalling. So we stand up for the taxpayer. We stand up for decent public services, properly funded. We stand up for the people who are struggling with the cost of living at the moment. The government says it's going to address the cost of living. The Prime Minister mentions it all the time, and yet he is responsible for this hike in the cost of living. If you look at energy prices, they've gone up worldwide, but far less so in the rest of Europe than in the United Kingdom. If you look at the other costs of living, for example, the increase in national insurance contributions, that's going to badly affect so many of the poorest households. And, of course, prices of food and other living costs going up and up and up, and yet wages and salaries are staying the same or going down.
So do you rather think, as people's experiences of what it's going to be like in 2022 when the energy price cap is removed, when that tax hike comes into play, when they're looking at the Prime Minister's legacy and finding it wanting, do you think that's going to be enough to disrupt public confidence in Boris Johnson, or are you still waiting for the emergence of this Met Police report?
No, Alex, I think the public's made its mind up. I think this is a moment like 30 years ago when the Tories scraped through the general election of 1992, only 3 months later, to pull out of the exchange rate mechanism and damage their reputation for financial competence for many, many years. This is a moment like that. I don't think the cabal around Boris Johnson understands the damage they've done to people's confidence, not just in his leadership, actually in our parliamentary process, but more importantly, I think in the whole of the Conservative Party. And that will stay with people for a long, long time. It's going to be very hard to win that back. It's all very well saying, oh, it's just Boris, we know what he's like. But the very things that attracted many of the public, especially in the red wall seats, to Boris Johnson's Conservative Party and his leadership are the very things that repulse people most right now.
We have, of course, got a bit of a litmus coming up in May with some local elections, a large amount of those in metropolitan areas, which tend to often go in Labour's favour. If you do not make big gains in those elections, will you be looking back at your own party and saying, why are we not, when we've got this headway, when we've got the Prime Minister in a weak position, why are we not gaining as much as we could? Well,
let's wait and see what the outcome of the elections is. I mean, the people of this country, it's the biggest test to date of the damage that this whole party scandal, a lockdown scandal, the immorality, if you like, of the Prime Minister and his cabal, it's going to be the first big electoral test. Let's wait and see what the outcome is. What I'm getting on the doorstep so far, and we've started our canvassing in my constituency in Leeds, is that people are really, really angry, and they're still angry. They don't care what Sue Gray says. What they want is a government that has moral values and that actually stands by the people that it's elected to represent, that stands up for the most oppressed and the poorest in our society, that stands for equality, justice and fairness. And that's not what they're getting. So let's wait and see what the outcome is. I expect them to be very, very good, frankly.